I became a servant in my own home until the most dangerous man in the city crossed a ballroom to choose me. That's right. The man everyone feared. The man whose name alone made grown men lower their eyes. He walked past senators, heiresses, and supermodels, straight to me, the girl scrubbing floors, the girl her own family called worthless. But before I tell you how Luca Moretti changed everything, you need to understand how far I'd fallen and what it cost him to pull me back. Drop a comment with your city below so I can see how far this story travels. Hit that like button and stay until the end, because this is only the beginning. The chandelier in the Carter mansion had been my mother's pride. Italian crystal, shipped across an ocean, installed the year I was born. She used to say it scattered light like hope, catching even the smallest flame and turning it into something beautiful. Now I stood beneath it with a mop in my hands, watching water drip from its lowest tier where I'd just scrubbed away 3 months of neglect. You missed a spot. I didn't need to turn around to know who stood behind me. My stepsister Victoria had a particular tone she reserved just for me. Sharp enough to cut, but wrapped in honey, so anyone listening might think she was being helpful. Where? I asked quietly, wringing out the mop. Everywhere. She descended the last few stairs, her heels clicking against marble my mother had chosen. Honestly, Evelyn, if you can't even clean properly, I don't know why we keep you around. We. As if she'd had any say in it. As if this house hadn't belonged to my father, and his father before him, and generations of Carters before that. But my father was dead, and the will had been complicated. I'll redo it, I said. See that you do. Mother and I leave for the Westwood Gala in an hour, and I won't have guests arriving tomorrow to find the house looking like this. Victoria examined her reflection in a hallway mirror, adjusting an earring that probably cost more than I'd seen in 6 months. Oh, and you'll need to press my backup dress. The blue one. I haven't decided which I'm wearing yet. You're leaving in an hour. Then I suggest you hurry. She glided away, leaving behind the scent of expensive perfume and casual cruelty. I closed my eyes and counted to 10. It was a trick my mother had taught me when I was small and prone to tears. Count to 10, sweetheart. Feelings pass. Strength stays. My mother had been wrong about that. Feelings didn't pass. They burrowed deep and made homes in your chest, pressing against your ribs until breathing became a deliberate act. But I counted anyway. Because the alternative was screaming, and I'd learned that screaming only made things worse. The transformation had been gradual. When my father first married Claudia Hartwell, I'd been 15 and still stupid enough to believe in fairy tales where stepmothers learned to love their new daughters. Claudia had seemed kind at first, attentive, interested in my life, quick to compliment my mother's taste in everything from furniture to the garden roses. Your mother had exquisite taste, she told me the week after the wedding, running her fingers along the mantel where family photos stood in silver frames. I hope I can honor her memory properly. I'd wanted to believe her. Victoria had been harder to win over. 2 years older than me, she'd arrived with designer luggage and a cold assessment in her eyes that never quite warmed. But I'd tried. I'd invited her shopping, offered to help her navigate the private school where I'd spent the last 10 years, introduced her to my friends. She'd smiled, thanked me, then systematically dismantled every friendship I had. It was subtle at first. A comment here, a carefully edited photo there. She'd tell Sarah that I'd called her outfit cheap. She'd show Michelle texts I'd supposedly sent, complaining about her weight. By the time I realized what was happening, my entire social circle had iced me out. I don't understand why you're upset, Victoria had said when I confronted her. If they were really your friends, they'd believe you over me, wouldn't they? But they hadn't, because Victoria had something I'd never learned to wield, the ability to lie with conviction. My father had noticed my isolation. Evelyn, sweetheart, is everything all right at school? Fine, I'd said, because what else could I say? Your new stepdaughter is destroying my life and I can't prove it? He'd looked unconvinced but hadn't pressed. He'd been distracted then. Long hours at the office, business deals that seemed to consume him. I told myself he'd notice eventually, that he'd see what was happening under his own roof. But then came the accident, a late night at the office, rain-slicked roads, a truck driver who'd been awake for 20 hours straight and didn't see the red light. My father died on impact. They told me he hadn't suffered. I wasn't sure if that made it better or worse. The will reading had been 3 weeks after the funeral. I'd sat in Mr. Pemberton's office, still wearing black, still feeling like the world had tilted sideways and forgotten to right itself. Claudia sat to my right, her hand occasionally patting mine in a gesture that might have seemed comforting to anyone who didn't notice how her fingers never quite made contact. Victoria stood by the window, affecting boredom. Mr. Pemberton had cleared his throat. James Carter's will is quite straightforward. The bulk of the estate, including the family home, investment portfolios, and business interests, is to be held in trust until Evelyn Carter reaches the age of 25, at which point full control transfers to her. I'd felt something loosen in my chest. 25. I was 17 then. 8 years seemed like forever, but it was something. Security. Future. However, Mr. Pemberton continued, and that single word landed like a stone. James Carter's final codicil, added 6 months before his death, stipulates that Claudia Hartwell Carter is to serve as trustee and maintain full executive control over all assets until that time. She is to provide for Evelyn's welfare, education, and upbringing as she sees fit. The world had tilted again. "I'm sorry," I'd said, my voice barely above a whisper. "Could you repeat that?" "Your stepmother controls everything until you're 25, Mr. Pemberton had said gently. "Your father trusted her to care for you." Claudia's hand had finally made full contact with mine, squeezing. "Oh, sweetheart, of course I'll take care of you, your family." The smile she'd given me had been warm, maternal even. I should have recognized it for what it was, the expression of a woman who'd just won a game I hadn't known we were playing. The changes had started small. My credit card stopped working. "Just a temporary measure," Claudia had explained, "until we get the estate finances sorted out. You understand." My car, the one my father had given me for my 16th birthday, disappeared from the garage. "We had to sell it, dear. Estate taxes. Surely you don't mind pitching in." My college fund, the one my parents had been building since I was born, became inaccessible due to probate complications. Then came the real shift. "Evelyn, we need to talk about your contribution to the household." I'd looked up from my homework to find Claudia standing in the doorway of what had been my mother's study. I'd retreated there after losing my bedroom. Victoria had wanted the bigger space, and Claudia had agreed it was only fair since she's older. "Contribution?" I'd echoed. "Well, darling, you're 18 now, an adult, and the estate, it's not generating the income it used to. Your father made some unfortunate investments before he passed." Claudia had sighed, the picture of regret. "We're going to have to make some sacrifices. All of us." "What kind of sacrifices?" "I've had to let the staff go. All of them. We simply can't afford the expense. Mrs. Chen, who'd been cooking for our family since before I was born. Marcus, who'd maintained the grounds. Even Sarah, the housekeeper who'd taught me to braid my hair when I was 6. Gone. But the house," I'd started, "will need to be maintained, yes. I thought we could all pitch in, share the responsibilities." Claudia's smile had been gentle, understanding. "Victoria and I will handle the social obligations, of course. Networking is crucial for rebuilding the family finances. But you've always been so good with practical things." Practical things. She'd meant cleaning, cooking, laundry, all the invisible labor that kept a house the size of the Carter mansion running. "I have school," I'd said. "Of course, and we wouldn't dream of interfering with your education, but surely you can spare a few hours a day, just until we're back on our feet." A few hours had become every spare moment. Then it had become my mornings, leaving me rushing to school without breakfast. Then my evenings, forcing me to study past midnight just to keep up. My grades had slipped. Not catastrophically, I was still pulling B's, but the scholarship to Northwestern I'd been counting on required a 4.0. I'd lost it. "Oh, sweetheart," Claudia had cooed when I'd shown her the rejection letter. "There's always community college, very practical, and you'd still be able to help around the house." That's when I'd finally understood. This wasn't temporary. This wasn't about estate finances or making sacrifices together. This was my life now. I finished pressing Victoria's backup dress. She'd chosen the red one in the end, leaving the blue one draped across her bed like a test I'd somehow failed, and made my way down to the kitchen. Dinner had been another one of my new responsibilities. Claudia preferred elaborate meals, the kind that took hours to prepare. Tonight she'd requested coq au vin, despite knowing I'd never made it before. I'd pulled up a recipe on my phone, my last remaining connection to the outside world, though Claudia had mentioned several times that the family plan was getting expensive, and started working. 2 hours later, I plated the chicken in Claudia's preferred dishes and set everything on the dining room table. The room looked beautiful. I'd made sure of it because the alternative was another lecture about standards and what my mother would have thought. Claudia and Victoria swept in at exactly 7 o'clock. "Smells wonderful, dear," Claudia said, settling into her chair, the chair that had been my father's. Though perhaps a touch heavy on the wine, the recipe did call for a full bottle, didn't it? I'd used exactly what the recipe specified, but I nodded. "I'll adjust next time." "See that you do. Victoria and I have delicate palates." I turned to leave. "Where are you going?" Victoria asked. "I thought I'd eat in the kitchen." "Don't be ridiculous. Sit down." I hesitated, then took my usual seat, the one furthest from the head of the table closest to the kitchen, just in case they needed anything. Claudia cut into her chicken, chewed thoughtfully, then set down her fork. "It's dry." My heart sank. "I'm sorry, I followed the recipe." "Recipes are guidelines, Evelyn. Cooking is an art. Your mother understood that." She dabbed her lips with a napkin. "But then, your mother had natural talent. Some people do, some people don't." Victoria smirked into her wine glass. I pushed food around my plate, my appetite gone. "Speaking of your mother," Claudia continued, "Victoria and I were discussing the gala tomorrow night, the Westwood Foundation event. Very prestigious. All of the city's most important families will be there." I knew where this was going. The Westwood Gala was the social event of the season, the kind of thing my parents used to attend together, my mother in vintage couture, my father proud beside her. "I thought you were going tonight," I said carefully. "Tonight's the preview auction. Tomorrow is the main event." Claudia smiled. "We were thinking it might be nice for you to attend, as a family." Hope, stupid, stubborn hope, fluttered in my chest. A night out. People. Conversation that didn't revolve around cleaning schedules and my inadequacies. "Really?" "Of course you'd need something appropriate to wear. I'm sure we can find something in the back of your mother's closet. Some of those older pieces might work, if we have them altered." My mother's clothes. I hadn't been allowed to touch them since the funeral. Claudia had claimed she was preserving them for when I was older. "And you'd need to do something about your hair," Victoria added, eyeing me critically. "When was the last time you had it professionally done?" "Not since my father died. Professional anything costs money, and money was something Claudia had made very clear I didn't have access to." "I can manage it myself," I said. Victoria's expression suggested I'd just claimed I could fly. "Well," Claudia said, "we'll see. But Evelyn, darling, I do need to be honest with you. This event, it's not just a party. It's an opportunity. For networking, for rebuilding the family's social standing. Your father's death and the complications with the estate have made things difficult." "I understand." "I'm not sure you do." Claudia's voice softened into something almost pitying. "People talk, sweetheart. They wonder why you're never at school events anymore, why you've withdrawn from your friends. Some have even asked if there's trouble at home." There was trouble at home. I was living it. "I'm fine," I said. "Are you?" "Because Victoria and I worry. We worry that you're becoming isolated, bitter even." Claudia reached across the table, covering my hand with hers. "Grief does strange things to people, and if you were to attend tomorrow night and behave inappropriately, say the wrong thing to the wrong person, it could damage all of us." There it was, the real message beneath the concern. Behave, smile, pretend everything is fine, or don't come at all. "I'll behave," I heard myself say. "I know you will, sweetheart. You're a good girl." Claudia squeezed my hand, then released it. "Now, why don't you clear these plates? Victoria and I have an early morning tomorrow." I cleared the table, washed the dishes, scrubbed the counters until they gleamed. By the time I made it to my room, the small one at the back of the house, the one that had been a guest room before becoming my entire world, it was past midnight. I collapsed onto the bed without changing clothes and stared at the ceiling. Tomorrow night, I'd go to the gala. I'd wear whatever dress Claudia deemed appropriate. I'd smile at the right people and say the right things and be the perfect example of a family united in grief. And maybe, just maybe, I'd remember what it felt like to be Evelyn Carter. Not the girl who scrubbed floors in her own home, not the servant who didn't deserve kindness, just me. I closed my eyes and let myself imagine it. I had no idea how wrong I was, or how right. The Westwood Foundation Gala was held at the Meridian Hotel, a glass and steel monument to excess perched on the edge of the city's financial district. I'd been there once before, years ago, when my father had been honored for his philanthropy. I remembered marble floors and champagne fountains, and feeling like I'd stepped into a different world. Walking through the doors now, I felt like an imposter. Claudia had selected my dress that morning, a pale blue thing that had belonged to my mother but had been altered so many times it barely resembled the original. Too loose in the bust, too tight in the waist, and at least 3 inches too long, forcing me to walk carefully or risk tripping. "It's vintage," Claudia had declared, as if that explained everything. Very appropriate. Victoria had taken one look at me and laughed. "You look like you're playing dress-up in Mommy's closet." She wasn't wrong. My hair, which I'd attempted to style myself, had already started falling from its pins. My shoes, also my mother's, also altered, pinched with every step. And my makeup, carefully applied in my bedroom mirror, looked garish under the ballroom chandelier lighting. I looked exactly like what I was. A girl pretending to belong somewhere she didn't. "Remember," Claudia murmured as we entered, "smile, be polite, and for heaven's sake, don't monopolize anyone's time. These people are here for important conversations." Translation: don't embarrass us. I nodded. The ballroom was already packed. Women in designer gowns clustered around high-top tables, their laughter bright and performative. Men in tuxedos discussed business deals over whiskey. Waiters circulated with champagne and hors d'oeuvres that probably cost more than I'd eaten in a month. Claudia and Victoria were absorbed into the crowd within minutes, pulled into conversations with people who mattered. I drifted to the edge of the room and tried to look purposeful, like I was waiting for someone rather than avoiding everyone. "Evelyn Carter?" I turned to find Jennifer Walsh, a girl I'd gone to school with. We'd never been close, but we'd shared a chemistry class junior year and sometimes partnered for labs. "Jennifer, hi." "Oh my God, I almost didn't recognize you." Her eyes traveled over my dress, my hair, my entire carefully constructed disaster. "Are you okay?" "I'm fine. It's just, I haven't seen you around much, and people have been saying—" She stopped, clearly unsure how to finish that sentence. "Saying what?" "Nothing. Just, after your dad—" Jennifer trailed off again, then brightened artificially. "Anyway, you should come say hi to everyone. Michelle's here and Sarah, and—" "That's okay," I said quickly. The last thing I needed was to face the friends who'd dropped me. "I should probably—" "Evelyn," Victoria's voice cut across the ballroom. I turned to find her waving me over to where she stood with Claudia and a cluster of older women dripping in diamonds. "Excuse me," I told Jennifer, and made my way across the floor. "There you are," Claudia said, her smile tight. "Mrs. Westwood was just asking about you." Rebecca Westwood, the gala's host and the wife of one of the city's wealthiest developers, regarded me with the kind of polite interest people reserved for moderately interesting pets. "Evelyn, yes, I knew your mother. Lovely woman. Such a tragedy." Mrs. Westwood's eyes performed the same assessment Jennifer's had: dress, hair, overall presentation, and found it lacking. "And how are you managing, dear?" "I'm well, thank you." "She's been such a help at home," Claudia interjected smoothly. "Very domestic. Loves cooking and cleaning. Don't you, darling?" Every woman in the circle looked at me with new understanding. Not pity, something worse. Dismissal. The recognition that I'd fallen from their sphere into something lesser. "How nice," Mrs. Westwood said, in a tone that suggested it was anything but. "Evelyn's taking a year off before college," Victoria added, her voice dripping false sympathy, "to process her grief. Very mature of her." I wasn't taking a year off. I'd lost my scholarship and had no means to pay tuition. But correcting Victoria in front of these women would only make things worse. So I smiled, just trying to figure out my next steps. Of course, Mrs. Westwood said, already looking past me toward someone more interesting. Well, best of luck to you, dear. I was dismissed. Claudia caught my arm as I started to retreat. Why don't you go get us some champagne, she murmured. 2 glasses. And don't drink any yourself, you're underage. I was being sent to fetch drinks like hired help. I made my way to the bar, face burning, and ordered 2 glasses of champagne. The bartender handed them over without comment, and I turned to navigate back through the crowd. That's when I saw him. He stood near the far entrance, surrounded by space despite the crowded room. People gave him distance, not obviously but instinctively, the way small animals sense predators. Luca Moretti. I'd never seen him in person before, but I knew who he was. Everyone in the city knew who he was. The newspapers called him a businessman, which was technically true the way calling a hurricane a weather event was technically true. He owned half the waterfront, had ties to construction, shipping, and industries people didn't talk about in polite company. He was dangerous, connected, the kind of man mothers warned their daughters about. And he was looking directly at me. I froze, champagne glasses wobbling in my hands. His eyes, dark, assessing, missing nothing, held mine for a long moment. Then he said something to the man beside him and started walking. Toward me. My brain screamed at me to move, to flee, to disappear into the crowd before whatever this was could happen, but my feet wouldn't cooperate. He crossed the entire ballroom in long, purposeful strides. People shifted out of his path without seeming to realize they were doing it. Conversations died and restarted in his wake. And then he was standing in front of me. Up close, he was even more devastating. Tall, broad-shouldered, with sharp features that might have been handsome if they weren't so severe. His tuxedo was perfectly tailored, expensive without being showy. Everything about him screamed power and control. "Evelyn Carter," he said. It wasn't a question. Yes. My voice came out barely above a whisper. How did you dance with me? The entire ballroom went silent. Or maybe it didn't. Maybe it just felt that way as everyone within earshot turned to stare. I'm not. I gestured helplessly at the champagne glasses in my hands. Luca took them from me without asking and handed them to a passing waiter. Then he extended his hand. I don't bite, he said, and something that might have been amusement flickered in his eyes. Usually, I should have refused, should have made an excuse and fled back to Claudia and Victoria and the safety of being invisible. But something in his expression stopped me. Not kindness exactly, but recognition. Like he saw something in me that even I had forgotten was there. I placed my hand in his. His palm was warm, calloused, and completely engulfed mine. He led me to the center of the dance floor, the cleared space where no one had been dancing because this was the kind of party where dancing was secondary to networking. The orchestra, sensing the moment, shifted into a waltz. Luca pulled me close, one hand at my waist, the other holding mine, maintaining exactly the right amount of propriety while making it absolutely clear who was leading. We began to move. I'd learned to waltz when I was 12, at my mother's insistence. Every lady should know how to dance properly, she'd said. But that had been years ago, and I was rusty and nervous and hyper-aware of every eye in the room tracking us. Relax, Luca murmured. Everyone's staring. Let them. I don't understand why I chose you. He spun me smoothly through a turn. Maybe I like choosing what others overlook. Heat flooded my face. I don't need charity. Good. I don't give charity. His eyes locked onto mine, intense and unwavering. What's your stepmother's name? The question was so unexpected I almost stumbled. Claudia, why? And the sister? Victoria. But they're not. What does this have to do with everything? He guided me through another turn, and I realized we'd moved to the exact center of the floor, where the light was brightest and the visibility highest. They sent you to fetch drinks, dressed you like a doll they're tired of playing with, put you on display so everyone could see how far you've fallen. Shame and anger warred in my chest. You don't know anything about my family. I know they're standing over there looking like they've swallowed glass. He nodded subtly toward where Claudia and Victoria stood frozen, their faces portraits of shock. I know you've been cleaning your own house for 6 months. I know you lost a full scholarship because your grades dropped after your father died, and no one bothered to help you. Should I continue? My heart hammered. How do you... I make it my business to know things. The music swelled, and he pulled me incrementally closer, especially when someone catches my attention. I haven't... You didn't have to. His thumb traced a small circle against my back, a gesture so subtle I might have imagined it. I saw you standing at the edge of the room, looking like you were trying to disappear, and I thought, there's someone who's been taught she's invisible. Tears pricked my eyes. I blinked them back furiously. I also thought, Luca continued, his voice dropping lower, that anyone who could survive what you've survived and still show up here, still try, must be stronger than she realizes. I'm not strong, I whispered. I'm just stuck. Then get unstuck. It's not that simple. It could be. The music was ending. Our dance was almost over. In moments, I'd have to return to Claudia and Victoria and explain why Luca Moretti, of all people, had singled me out. Why did you really ask me to dance? I asked. Luca studied me for a long moment, as if deciding how much truth to tell. Because every person in this room is exactly who they pretend to be. Except you. You're trying to pretend you're nothing special. He leaned in, his breath warm against my ear. You're failing. The music stopped. For one suspended moment, we stood motionless in the center of the ballroom, his hand still at my waist, mine still in his. Then he stepped back, released me, and bowed slightly. An old-fashioned gesture that somehow felt perfectly natural coming from him. Thank you for the dance, Miss Carter. He turned and walked away, leaving me standing alone under the chandelier, every eye in the room fixed on me. I'd never felt more exposed, or more seen. The ride home was arctic. Claudia sat in the front passenger seat, spine rigid, staring straight ahead. Victoria sprawled in the back beside me, her silence somehow louder than screaming. The driver, hired for the evening because Claudia insisted on making an entrance, navigated the late-night streets while I pressed myself against the door and tried to become invisible. It didn't work. Well, Claudia said finally, her voice crystalline with controlled fury. That was quite a performance. I said nothing. There was nothing to say that wouldn't make this worse. Luca Moretti, Victoria hissed, and even his name sounded dangerous in her mouth. Do you have any idea who that man is? Everyone knows who he is, Claudia snapped. The question is what he wants with her. Maybe he felt sorry for her, Victoria suggested, examining her nails. She did look pathetic. Men like Luca Moretti don't feel sorry for anyone. They take what benefits them. Claudia twisted in her seat to look at me directly. What did he say to you? Nothing. We just danced. People don't just dance with Luca Moretti. He doesn't socialize. He doesn't small talk. He attends exactly 3 events a year and speaks to perhaps 5 people at each one. Her eyes narrowed. So I'll ask again. What did he say? My mind raced, trying to remember his exact words. About my family, about strength, about being unstuck. He asked my name, I said carefully, and he said I danced well. It was close enough to true that my voice didn't waver. Claudia studied me for a long moment, clearly weighing whether to push harder. Then she turned back around. If he contacts you again, you will tell me immediately. Do you understand? Yes. I mean it, Evelyn. That man is dangerous. Whatever game he's playing, you are not equipped to handle it. The driver pulled up to the Carter mansion. Victoria was out of the car before it fully stopped, heels clicking up the front walk. Claudia followed more slowly, already pulling out her phone. I trailed behind them both, my altered dress dragging against the ground. Inside, Victoria headed straight for the stairs. I'm exhausted. All that excitement over nothing. Nothing, Claudia repeated, but she was staring at me again. Yes. Hopefully that's all it was. I waited until they'd both disappeared upstairs before I finally exhaled. My hands were shaking. I made my way to the kitchen, thinking I'd make tea, something to calm the adrenaline still coursing through me. But when I flipped on the lights, I found breakfast dishes still piled in the sink, Claudia and Victoria's, left from this morning with the clear expectation that I'd handle them. I stared at the crusty plates and congealed egg yolk, and felt something crack inside my chest. The dance had been real. For 10 minutes, I'd been seen, valued, chosen, even if I didn't understand why. And now I was back here, in a kitchen that should have been mine, cleaning up after people who treated me like a servant in my own home. I turned off the light and left the dishes where they were. It was a small rebellion. Meaningless, really, but it felt like something. I didn't expect to hear from Luca Moretti again. Men like him didn't pursue girls like me, girls with no money, no prospects, no power. The dance had been an anomaly, a moment of curiosity or charity or whatever impulse had driven him to cross that ballroom. So when I found the envelope on my dresser the next afternoon, I almost didn't open it. It was heavy cream cardstock, expensive, with no return address. My name was written across the front in dark ink, the handwriting angular and precise. I turned it over twice, checking for, I didn't know what, some indication of who'd sent it or how it had gotten into my room. Finally, I slid my finger under the seal and pulled out a single card. Dinner. Friday, 7 p.m. A car will pick you up. LM. No please. No asking. Just a statement of fact, as if my attendance was already decided. My heart hammered against my ribs. This was insane. I didn't know this man, didn't know what he wanted or why he'd singled me out. Claudia had said he was dangerous, and for once, I suspected she wasn't exaggerating. I should refuse. I would refuse. I pulled out my phone, still on the family plan that Claudia complained about monthly, and realized I had no way to contact him. No number, no email, nothing. He'd given me an invitation with no way to decline. Evelyn, Claudia's voice echoed up the stairs. I shoved the card into my dresser drawer and hurried downstairs. She stood in the foyer, still in her tennis whites, looking annoyed. The garden club is coming for lunch tomorrow. I need the dining room spotless, the silver polished, and something impressive prepared. I'm thinking poached salmon with dill cream sauce. I have school tomorrow. Then I suggest you start tonight. She checked her watch. Victoria and I are going to the spa. We'll be back by 9. I expect significant progress by then. They left. I stood in the empty foyer and felt the weight of the house pressing down on me. The card upstairs felt like a lifeline. Or a trap. Maybe both. Friday arrived faster than I expected. I'd spent the week in a fog of anxiety and anticipation, jumping every time my phone buzzed, expecting... I didn't know what. A follow-up message, a cancellation, something. Nothing came. At 6:45, I stood in my room trying to figure out what one wore to dinner with a man like Luca Moretti. My wardrobe consisted of clothes I'd had since high school and a few pieces that had been my mother's but didn't quite fit. I finally settled on a simple black dress, also my mother's, but less obviously altered than the gala disaster. I'd fixed my hair into a low bun and applied minimal makeup. The overall effect was probably too plain, but it was better than trying too hard. At 6:58, a car pulled up outside. Not a taxi or an Uber. A sleek black sedan with tinted windows and a driver in a dark suit who opened the back door and waited. My mouth went dry. I could still back out. Could text Claudia, who thought I was studying at the library, and tell her I was sick. Could climb out my window like a teenager sneaking out, except in reverse. Instead, I grabbed my jacket and headed downstairs. Claudia and Victoria were in the living room, absorbed in some reality show. Neither looked up as I passed. The driver nodded as I approached. Miss Carter? Hi, yes, that's me. This way, please. He held the door. I slid into leather seats that probably cost more than my entire wardrobe and tried to calm my breathing. The car pulled away from the curb smoothly, heading downtown. Where are we going? I asked. The driver's eyes met mine in the rear-view mirror. Mr. Moretti's residence? Not a restaurant. His home. I should have demanded to be let out. Should have insisted on a public place, witnesses, safety protocols. But I didn't. Maybe because I was tired of being safe, of playing by rules that only seemed to apply to me, of being invisible. Or maybe because some part of me wanted to know what would happen if I finally took a risk. Luca Moretti lived in a penthouse overlooking the harbor. The building was old money trying to look like new money, industrial chic with exposed brick and floor-to-ceiling windows. The elevator required a key card. We rose 40 floors in silence. The doors opened directly into his apartment. I stepped out onto polished concrete floors and felt my breath catch. The space was massive, open concept, with a kitchen that looked like it belonged in a magazine and a living area dominated by those enormous windows. The city sprawled below us, lights flickering like fallen stars. "Miss Carter!" I spun to find Luca emerging from what looked like a study. He'd traded his tuxedo for dark slacks and a white button-down with the sleeves rolled to his elbows. The casual look should have made him less intimidating. It didn't. "I wasn't sure you'd come," he said. "I wasn't sure I should." "But you did." He moved closer, and I fought the urge to step back. "Why?" "I don't know." "Liar." The word was soft but definitive. I felt my spine straighten defensively. "I came because you didn't give me a way to say no. The card had my private number on the back." I blinked. "What?" "Check." I pulled the card from my purse where I'd tucked it and flipped it over. Sure enough, a phone number was embossed on the back in the same dark ink. I didn't see. "You saw what you expected to see. An order, because that's what you're used to." Luca took the card from my fingers, his hand brushing mine. "I was hoping you'd call. Tell me to go to hell, maybe. Something with fire in it. People don't talk to you that way." "Exactly my point." He gestured toward the kitchen. "Are you hungry?" I hadn't eaten since noon. Claudia had requested lobster bisque for dinner, a 3-hour project that had left me no time for my own meal. "Starving," I admitted. "Good." He led me to the kitchen, where I discovered he'd actually cooked. Pasta carbonara, simple but perfect, plated beautifully with fresh parmesan and cracked pepper. "You made this?" I couldn't hide my surprise. "I'm not completely useless." He pulled out a chair at the island. "Sit." I sat. He poured wine, expensive, I could tell from the label even though I knew nothing about wine, and slid a glass toward me. "I'm not 21, I said automatically. "I won't tell if you don't." I took a sip. It was good, rich and smooth, and nothing like the cheap stuff people snuck into high school parties. Luca watched me with that same intense focus he'd had during the dance, like I was a puzzle he was determined to solve. "Why am I here?" I asked finally. "To eat." "That's not an answer." "It's part of one." He twirled pasta onto his fork with practiced ease. "Tell me about your family." "There's nothing to tell." Another lie. "You're full of them." Heat crept up my neck. "I'm not. Your stepmother controls your inheritance. Your stepsister treats you like a servant. You've been systematically isolated, demeaned, and erased from your own life." He said it matter-of-factly, like reciting items from a grocery list. "And yet you tell me there's nothing to tell." I set down my fork. "How do you know all that?" "I already told you. I make it my business to know things." "About me specifically?" "Yes." The single word hung between us. "Why?" I whispered. Luca leaned back in his chair, studying me. "Do you know what I do, Evelyn?" "You're a businessman." His mouth quirked. "That's the polite version. The truth is, I operate in spaces where power matters more than law, where people take what they want and destroy anyone who gets in their way." He paused. "I'm very good at recognizing when someone is being destroyed." My throat tightened. "I'm not." "You are. Slowly, methodically. By people who should be protecting you." His voice remained calm, but something sharp edged into it. "And I find that I have opinions about that. You don't even know me." "I know enough." He stood, moving to refill his wine. "I know you've been fighting alone for months. I know you're stronger than anyone's given you credit for. And I know that if someone doesn't intervene, your stepmother will strip away every piece of who you are until there's nothing left but the girl who cleans her floors." Tears burned behind my eyes. I blinked them back furiously. "Why do you care?" "Maybe I don't like seeing valuable things destroyed." He returned to his seat. "Or maybe I see something in you that reminds me of myself." "I doubt that." "You'd be surprised." He picked up his fork again. "Eat. You're going to need your strength." "For what?" "For what comes next." We finished dinner in relative silence. I was too nervous to make conversation, and Luca seemed content to watch me with that unnerving intensity. Finally, he cleared the plates and led me to the living area. The city glittered below us, beautiful and indifferent. "I'm going to offer you something," he said, "and I need you to really hear it before you answer." My heart hammered. "Okay, I can help you. Get you out from under your stepmother's control. Set you up somewhere safe with enough money to finish school, start a life, whatever you want." He paused. "All you have to do is ask." It sounded too good to be true. It sounded like a trap. "What do you want in return?" I asked carefully. "Nothing you're thinking." "How do you know what I'm thinking?" "Because you've been taught that men like me only help when it benefits us. And you're wondering what I want from you that's worth the investment." His expression didn't change. "I don't want your body, Evelyn. I don't want your gratitude. I don't want you to owe me anything." "Then why?" "Because I can. Because someone should. Because watching your stepmother parade you around like a broken doll makes me want to burn down everything she's built." He moved closer. "Take it or don't. But know that the offer is real." I stared at him, searching for the catch. "There's always a cost," I said finally. "Yes, the cost is that you'll have to be brave enough to take it, to walk away from the only home you've ever known and the people who've convinced you that you deserve nothing better." His eyes held mine. "Can you do that?" Could I? Everything in me screamed that this was dangerous, that I didn't know this man or his motivations, that accepting help from someone like Luca Moretti came with strings I couldn't see yet. But the alternative was staying, continuing to scrub floors and bite my tongue and watch my own life slip away piece by piece. "I need to think," I whispered. "Fair enough." He pulled a phone from his pocket, not his personal one, I realized, but a separate device, and held it out. "This is for you, my number's programmed. No one else's. If you need me for anything, you call." I took the phone. It was warm from his pocket. "What if my stepmother finds it?" "Then you tell her it's mine, that I gave it to you because I'm interested." He smiled without humor. "She won't question that. Women rarely do when it comes to men like me." "Are you?" I asked before I could stop myself. "Interested?" Luca was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was lower, rougher. "I'm interested in making sure you survive. Everything else—" He shook his head. "Ask me again when you're not under someone else's control." It was the most decent thing anyone had said to me in months. I clutched the phone. "Thank you. For dinner. For this. For—" "Don't thank me yet." He walked me back to the elevator. "You haven't decided anything." The ride down was faster than the ride up. The same driver waited outside. As the car pulled away, I looked back at the building and saw Luca standing at one of those massive windows, a dark silhouette against the light, watching me leave, or watching over me. I wasn't sure which. I hid the phone in the back of my closet, buried under old sweaters Claudia had deemed too shabby for donation but too cheap to throw out. Then I lay in bed and stared at the ceiling. Luca's offer played on repeat in my mind. Freedom, safety, a future that didn't involve scrubbing someone else's kitchen. All I had to do was be brave enough to take it, but bravery required believing I deserved better, and I wasn't sure I did anymore. The weekend passed in a blur of chores and careful avoidance. Claudia watched me more closely than usual, as if expecting me to sprout wings or confess to something. Victoria was worse. She'd started making pointed comments about Luca whenever Claudia was out of earshot. "Must be nice having a sugar daddy," she'd murmured on Saturday while I folded laundry. "Though I can't imagine what he sees in you." I didn't respond. Responding only encouraged her. Sunday night, I finally cracked. I pulled out the phone Luca had given me and stared at his number. My thumb hovered over the call button. What would I even say? "Help me? I'm ready? I don't know how to do this alone?" Before I could decide, the phone buzzed. A text. From Luca. "You're thinking too hard." I nearly dropped the device. How did he... Another text. "Brave doesn't mean fearless. It means doing it anyway." My hands shook as I typed back. "How do you know I'm thinking it all?" His response was immediate. "Because if you'd decided, you would have called. And if you'd given up, you would have thrown the phone away." He was right. I don't know how to leave. Three dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again, one step at a time. First step, believe you deserve better. What if I can't? Then fake it until you can. I'll handle the rest. I stared at those words for a long time. Why are you doing this? The response took longer this time. Because no one did it for me, and I remember what that cost. Something in my chest cracked open. Okay. Okay? I'm ready. Help me. The dots appeared and stayed there for several seconds. Monday. After school. Be ready to leave with only what you can carry. I'll take care of everything else. Panic flooded through me. That's too fast. Fast is better. Less time to back out. Less time for them to stop you. What if... Trust me. 2 words. Simple. Terrifying. But also solid. Like a foundation I could build on. Okay, I typed again. Monday. Good girl. Get some sleep. You're going to need it. I set the phone down and realized I was crying. Not from sadness, not from fear, from relief. Someone was coming for me. I just had to hold on one more day. Monday morning dawned gray and cold. I dressed for school in jeans and a sweater, then carefully packed a backpack with things I couldn't leave behind. My mother's jewelry, costume pieces mostly, but they'd been hers. Photos from before the wedding, my laptop, a few clothes. It wasn't much, but it was mine. Claudia and Victoria were already at breakfast when I came downstairs. You look terrible, Victoria observed. Didn't sleep? I'm fine. You're never fine. She bit into a piece of toast. But you're always so eager to pretend. Claudia set down her coffee. Evelyn, I need you home by 3:30. The Hendersons are coming for dinner, and I need at least 4 hours to prepare. I have a study group, I lied. It might run late. Then leave early. This is important. So is my education. The words came out sharper than I'd intended. Claudia's eyes narrowed. Excuse me? I swallowed hard. I just meant I can't control when the group ends. I'll get home as soon as I can. She studied me for a long moment. You've been acting strange lately, ever since that gala. If I find out you're doing something foolish, I'm not. See that you're not. She returned to her coffee. 3:30, Evelyn. Don't make me wait. I grabbed my backpack and fled. School was torture. Every class felt endless. Every minute dragged. I kept checking my phone, the normal one, not Luca's, and watching the clock. At lunch, Jennifer found me in the library. Hey, you okay? You look like you're about to throw up. Just stressed. Big test this week. Right. She didn't believe me. Listen, I know we haven't talked much since everything, but if you need anything, I'm fine, I said automatically. Evelyn, I have to go. Sorry. I left before she could press. Finally, mercifully, the last bell rang. I walked out the front doors with my backpack and didn't look back. Luca's car was waiting across the street. The same driver. The same dark sedan. But this time, when the door opened, Luca himself was inside. Get in. I hesitated on the curb. This was it, the point of no return. Behind me, the school. My old life. Everything I'd known. Ahead, uncertainty, risk, freedom, maybe. Evelyn, Luca's voice pulled me back. He was watching me with that intense focus, like he could see every thought racing through my mind. I can't promise it'll be easy, he said quietly, but I can promise it'll be better than this. I climbed into the car. The driver closed the door. And just like that, I left. We didn't go back to Luca's penthouse. Instead, the car headed north, out of the city proper and into one of the quieter neighborhoods where old trees lined the streets and houses sat back from the road behind iron gates. Where are we going? I asked. Somewhere safe. Somewhere she can't find you. Claudia will look. Let her. Luca's voice was calm. I own half this city. If I don't want you found, you won't be found. The certainty in his voice should have been arrogant. Instead, it was oddly comforting. We pulled up to a brownstone with flower boxes in the windows and a red door that looked freshly painted. This is yours? I asked. Now it's yours. I stared at him. What? Lease is in your name. Paid through the end of the year, utilities included, furnished. He opened his door. Come on, I'll show you. The interior was beautiful. Hardwood floors, crown molding, a kitchen with actual counter space. Upstairs, 2 bedrooms and a bathroom with a clawfoot tub. It was perfect. It was terrifying. I can't accept this, I said. You already did. The moment you got in the car. Luca moved to the window overlooking the street. Your stepmother will realize you're gone soon. She'll call, probably threaten you. Maybe try to file a missing persons report, though that won't go anywhere. You're 18. What do I tell her? The truth, that you left, that you're not coming back. He turned to face me. She'll try to manipulate you, tell you she's worried, that you're making a mistake, that you owe her something. Don't listen. What if she's right? What if I am making a mistake? Luca crossed the room in 3 strides and took my shoulders gently but firmly. Listen to me. The only mistake you've made is staying as long as you did. You owe Claudia nothing. She's not your family. She's not your guardian. She's a parasite who's been feeding off your grief. Ooh, his eyes burned into mine. You deserve better. Say it. Say it. I deserve better, I whispered. Again. I deserve better. Louder. I deserve better. The words came out choked but fierce. Good. He released me. Remember that, especially when she tries to make you doubt it. My phone, the regular one, started buzzing in my pocket. Claudia. I stared at the screen. You don't have to answer, Luca said. Yes, I do. If I don't, she'll... I didn't know how to finish that sentence. I answered. Where are you? Claudia's voice was sharp enough to cut. I'm safe. That's not what I asked. Where are you? Why aren't you home? The Hendersons will be here in 2 hours and nothing is ready. I'm not coming home. Silence. Then, what did you say? I'm not coming home. I left. I looked at Luca, who nodded encouragement. I'm not coming back. Don't be ridiculous. Whatever this tantrum is about, it's not a tantrum. I'm done, Claudia. Done cleaning. Done being treated like I'm nothing. Just done. You ungrateful little... She stopped herself, clearly trying to regain control. Evelyn, sweetheart, I understand you're upset. Grief makes us do irrational things, but you can't just leave. Where will you go? How will you survive? I'll figure it out. With what money? You have nothing. You are nothing without this family. The words hit like physical blows. I felt myself wavering. Then Luca stepped closer, his presence solid and grounding. I'm not nothing, I said, stronger this time, and I don't need you. This is about him, isn't it? Luca Moretti. He's poisoned your mind, made you think. He's shown me that I deserve better than being your servant. Servant? How dare you? I took you in, raised you, gave you a home. You took my home. You erased me from it piece by piece. But you can't do that anymore. My voice cracked. I'm leaving. Don't try to find me. I hung up. The phone immediately started ringing again. I turned it off. Then I collapsed onto the nearest chair and burst into tears. Luca didn't try to comfort me, didn't offer platitudes or tell me it would be okay. He just stood there, solid and present, while I cried out months of pain and fear and rage. Finally, when the tears slowed, he spoke. First step done. Now comes the hard part. I laughed wetly. That was the easy part? That was you breaking free. The hard part is staying free. He pulled out his phone. I'm going to make some calls. Get you set up with accounts, documents, everything you need, but I need you to promise me something. What? Don't contact them. Not for any reason. Claudia will try to manipulate you back. Victoria will try to guilt you. They'll use every weapon they have. His expression was granite. You have to be strong enough to withstand it. I don't feel strong. You walked away from everything you knew with nothing but a backpack. That's the definition of strong. He headed for the door. Get some rest. I'll be back in the morning. Wait, you're leaving? You need space, time to process. He paused in the doorway. But I'll be close. If you need anything, use the phone I gave you. I'll answer. Then he was gone, and I was alone in a strange house, in a strange neighborhood with nothing but the clothes on my back and a future I had no idea how to navigate. I should have been terrified. Instead, for the first time in months, I felt like I could breathe. The first night in the brownstone, Evelyn didn't sleep. She wandered from room to room, touching furniture that didn't carry memories of loss, standing at windows that overlooked streets where no one knew her name. The silence was different here, not oppressive like the Carter Mansion's quiet had become, but vast and full of possibility. Around 3 in the morning, she finally collapsed onto the bed in the master bedroom, still fully clothed, and managed a few hours of restless unconsciousness. She woke to sunlight streaming through unfamiliar curtains and the sound of her phone buzzing. The burner phone. Luca's. Hello? There's breakfast on the front porch. And coffee. You'll need it. She stumbled downstairs to find an insulated bag containing pastries from a bakery she recognized from downtown, the expensive one her mother used to visit on special occasions, and a thermos of coffee that smelled like heaven. A note was tucked inside. Eat. Shower. I'll be there at 9. It was 7:30. Evelyn ate standing at the kitchen counter, too restless to sit. The croissant was buttery and perfect and tasted like freedom. She took her coffee upstairs and stood under the shower until the hot water ran lukewarm, washing away the previous day's fear and tension. By the time Luca's car pulled up at exactly 9 o'clock, she felt almost human. He came to the door this time instead of waiting in the car. Dark jeans, black sweater, the same intense focus in his eyes that made her feel simultaneously seen and exposed. "How are you?" he asked. "I don't know yet." "Honest answer." He stepped inside, carrying a leather messenger bag. "Your stepmother called my office 4 times yesterday, left increasingly threatening voicemails." Evelyn's stomach dropped. "What did she say?" "That I'm corrupting a vulnerable girl, that she'll file kidnapping charges, that I have no idea who I'm dealing with." His expression didn't change. Standard intimidation tactics from someone who's lost control. "Can she actually do anything? Legally?" "No. You're 18, you left of your own accord, and I have excellent lawyers who are already prepared to bury any claim she tries to make." He set the bag on the kitchen counter. "But that won't stop her from trying other methods." "Like what?" "Slander, social pressure. She'll spread rumors, paint you as unstable or ungrateful. She'll contact your friends, your school, anyone who might influence you to come back." He pulled documents from the bag. "Which is why we're going to move fast." The documents were overwhelming. Bank accounts in her name, credit cards with substantial limits, contact information for lawyers, accountants, a therapist. A new phone, not a burner, but an actual smartphone with an unlimited plan. "This is too much," Evelyn said. "This is the minimum you need to establish independence." Luca spread the papers across the counter. "The bank account is yours. Money from a trust I've set up. Not charity. Think of it as reparations for what was stolen from you. I can't pay you back. I don't want you to. I want you to use it to build something better." He pointed to another document. "This is information for a lawyer who specializes in estate law. Your father's will can be challenged. The codicil giving your stepmother control was added suspiciously close to his death, and there are questions about his mental state at the time." Hope fluttered dangerously in Evelyn's chest. "You think I could get the estate back?" "I think it's worth investigating, but it'll take time. Months, maybe longer. Which is why you need to be settled and stable now, so when that fight comes, you're ready for it." He walked her through each document, explaining with a patience she hadn't expected. Bank routing numbers. Credit limits. Who to call if Claudia showed up at her door. "Don't engage with her directly," he said. "Any communication goes through lawyers. She'll try to provoke you, make you emotional so you'll say something she can use against you." "I don't know how to do this," Evelyn admitted. "Any of this. I've never had my own bank account, never paid bills or managed money, You'll learn, and I'll help until you can do it yourself." He checked his watch. "There's one more thing we need to handle today." "What?" "School. You need to officially withdraw and get your transcripts sent somewhere safe. Can't have your stepmother blocking your academic records." The thought of going back to her old school made Evelyn's skin crawl. "Can't I just call?" "You could, but showing up in person, confident and clear about your decision, sends a message." His eyes held hers. "That you're not running, you're choosing." She understood what he wasn't saying, that if she hid now, she'd keep hiding. That strength had to be practiced, not just claimed. "Okay," she said. "Let's go." The drive to Westfield Academy took 20 minutes. Evelyn spent most of it staring out the window, watching familiar streets pass by, feeling like she was visiting a foreign country. Luca's presence beside her was grounding. He didn't try to fill the silence with reassurance or warnings. He just existed, solid and certain, like an anchor in a storm. The school's administrative building looked the same as always, brick and ivy, expensive and exclusionary. Evelyn had walked these paths for years without questioning whether she belonged. Now she knew she didn't. And more importantly, she knew she didn't want to. "I'll wait here," Luca said as they parked. "You're not coming in?" "This is yours to do, but I'm here if you need me." She took a deep breath and got out of the car. The registrar's office was on the second floor. Mrs. Chen, no relation to their former cook, had been processing student records since before Evelyn was born. She looked up when Evelyn entered, her expression shifting from polite professionalism to poorly concealed curiosity. "Evelyn Carter, I was wondering when you'd show up." "I need to withdraw," Evelyn said, "and get my transcript sent to—" She paused, realizing she didn't have an answer. "Somewhere I can access them digitally." "Withdrawing in the middle of the semester?" Mrs. Chen's eyebrows climbed. "Does your guardian know about this?" "I'm 18. I don't need a guardian's permission. Still, it's highly irregular. You're one of our top students, despite the recent difficulties. Throwing that away seems—" "I'm not throwing anything away. I'm taking control of my education instead of letting someone else dictate it." Evelyn kept her voice level. "Can you process the withdrawal, or not?" Mrs. Chen studied her for a long moment, then sighed. "I'll need you to fill out some forms. And I'm required to note that you're making this decision against school advisement. Note whatever you need to." The forms took 15 minutes. Evelyn's hand was steady as she signed her name, officially severing her connection to Westfield Academy and everything it represented. As she stood to leave, Mrs. Chen spoke again. "Your mother would have been proud of you, you know." Evelyn froze. "Excuse me?" "I knew Caroline Carter. She was on the alumni board for years. Brilliant woman. Strong, not afraid to make difficult choices." Mrs. Chen's expression softened slightly. "I don't know what's happened in your life, Evelyn, but I know running away isn't the same as moving forward." "I'm not running away." "Good, because Caroline's daughter deserves better than that." Evelyn left before the tears could start. Luca was leaning against the car when she emerged, phone to his ear. He ended the call when he saw her face. "Done." "Done." She climbed into the passenger seat. "Where to now?" "Wherever you want. This is your day." The freedom of that statement was overwhelming. When was the last time she'd gone somewhere just because she wanted to? Done something that wasn't dictated by someone else's needs or demands? "I don't know what I want," she admitted. "Then let's figure it out." He pulled out of the parking lot. "What did you used to like doing, before everything changed?" Evelyn thought back to the girl she'd been at 15, before her father remarried, before loss and manipulation had reshaped her into someone small and scared. "Reading," she said finally. "I used to spend hours at the bookstore downtown, the old one with the cafe in the back." "Morrison's, still there." Luca changed direction. "What else?" "Art galleries. My mom loved them. We'd go on Sundays and she'd make up stories about the paintings." The memory brought both warmth and ache. "And walking by the harbor, just being outside. We can do all of that." "Right now?" "Why not? You have nowhere else to be." It felt subversive, dangerous, spending a Tuesday doing exactly what she wanted instead of what was required. She loved it. They spent the morning at Morrison's, where Evelyn selected half a dozen books without checking price tags or worrying about whether they were practical. Luca bought coffee and sat across from her in the cafe, working on his phone while she lost herself in pages. "You don't have to stay," she said at one point. "I'm sure you have important things. I'm exactly where I need to be." Something in his tone made her look up. He was watching her with that same intensity, but softer now, almost bond. "What?" she asked. "You're smiling. First time I've seen it look real." She touched her face, surprised. She was smiling. When had that started? They left Morrison's and walked the harbor path, the November wind sharp off the water. Luca didn't try to fill the silence with conversation. He just walked beside her, occasionally pointing out ships or landmarks, letting her set the pace. "Can I ask you something?" Evelyn said finally. "Always." "Why are you really doing this? And don't say because you can or because no one helped you. There's more to it." Luca was quiet for a long time, his expression unreadable. When he spoke, his voice was lower, rougher. "When I was 17, I made a choice that cost me everything. My family, my home, any chance at a normal life." He stared out at the water. "I chose survival over belonging, and I've spent every day since building power so I'd never be that powerless again." "What happened?" "My father was not a good man. He ran a business that hurt people. When I refused to be part of it, he gave me a choice: fall in line or leave with nothing." His jaw tightened. "I left. Spent 2 years on the streets before I clawed my way into something resembling stability." Evelyn's chest ached. "I'm sorry." "Don't be. It made me who I am. But it also made me aware of what it costs to be alone, of how many people suffer in silence because they think they have no options." He turned to look at her. "When I saw you at that gala, being paraded around by a woman who should have been protecting you, I saw myself at 17, and I thought, maybe I can be for someone else what no one was for me." "You saved me," Evelyn whispered. "No, you saved yourself. You got in the car, you walked away. You're doing the hard work of building a new life." His hand found hers, warm despite the cold wind. "I'm just making sure you have the resources to do it." They stood there, hands clasped, the city moving around them while they existed in their own suspended moment. "What if I fail?" Evelyn asked. "What if I'm not strong enough to make this work?" "Then you fail, and you try again. Strength isn't about never falling, Evelyn. It's about getting back up." He squeezed her hand. "And you've been getting back up for months. You just didn't recognize it as strength." Something shifted in her chest. A knot she'd been carrying since her father's death began to loosen. "Thank you," she said. "For what?" "For seeing me when everyone else decided I was invisible." Luca's expression gentled. "You were never invisible, just surrounded by people too blind to look." They walked back to the car as the sun started to set, painting the harbor in shades of orange and gold. Evelyn felt lighter than she had in months. She should have known it wouldn't last. The first sign of trouble came 3 days later. Evelyn had started to establish a routine: mornings reading or exploring the neighborhood, afternoons researching online classes, and working with Luca's recommended lawyer on the estate case. The brownstone was starting to feel like home rather than a hiding place. She was making lunch when her burner phone rang. Luca's voice was tight when she answered. "Don't leave the house today." "What? Why?" "Your stepmother filed a police report claiming you're mentally unstable and a danger to yourself. It's bullshit, and my lawyers are already handling it, but until it's resolved, we need to be careful." Fear spiked through her. "Can they force me back?" "No, but they can make your life complicated. Just stay inside until I get there." He arrived an hour later with his lawyer, a sharp-eyed woman named Patricia who looked like she ate corporate executives for breakfast. "This is harassment, plain and simple," Patricia said, settling at the kitchen table with a stack of files. "Mrs. Carter is weaponizing the mental health system to regain control of you. Unfortunately, it's a tactic that often works because people assume a concerned parent must be acting in good faith." "She's not my parent," Evelyn said. "Legally, she was your guardian until you turned 18. That gives her just enough standing to be a nuisance." Patricia pulled out documents. "However, we can counterfile for harassment and restraining orders. The question is whether you want to escalate." "What happens if I don't?" She keeps pushing, tries other tactics, makes your life miserable until you either cave or she runs out of options. Evelyn looked at Luca, who'd been standing by the window watching the street. "What do you think I should do?" "I think you fight. Bullies only understand strength." His eyes were hard. "But it's your choice, and whatever you decide, I'll support it." She thought about the girl she'd been, the one who'd scrubbed floors and bitten her tongue and accepted cruelty as normal, the one who'd believed she deserved nothing better. That girl was gone. File everything, Evelyn said. Restraining orders, harassment charges, whatever it takes. I'm done being afraid of her. Patricia smiled. Good. I was hoping you'd say that. They spent the next 2 hours going through strategy. Patricia asked questions about her time at the Carter mansion, dates, incidents, witnesses. Every answer made Evelyn angrier at how much she'd tolerated. One more thing, Patricia said as she packed up. Your stepmother has been contacting your former friends, spreading rumors that you're involved with criminals and making dangerous choices. It's defamation, and we can address it, but be prepared for social fallout. I don't have friends anymore. She made sure of that months ago. Still, word will spread. People will have opinions. Patricia's expression softened slightly. Are you prepared for that? Evelyn thought about it. A month ago, the idea of people talking about her would have been devastating. Now? Let them talk, she said. I know the truth. That's enough. After Patricia left, Luca stayed. They ordered takeout, Thai food from a place Evelyn had never been allowed to try because Victoria claimed she was allergic to peanuts, and ate in the living room while rain drummed against the windows. You did well today, Luca said. I was terrified the entire time. Courage isn't the absence of fear, it's acting despite it. He set down his food. You're stronger than you know, Evelyn. You keep saying that because it's true, and because someone needs to, until you believe it yourself. She met his eyes across the coffee table. The intensity there made her breath catch. Can I ask you something personal? She said. Haven't you been doing that all week? This is different. She hesitated. Is this... She didn't know how to finish. Didn't know how to ask if the way he looked at her meant what she thought it meant. If the careful distance he maintained was about propriety or disinterest. Am I what? He prompted gently. Interested in me. You said to ask again when I wasn't under someone's control. Well, I'm not anymore, so I'm asking. Luca was quiet for a long moment. Then he set down his food and moved to sit beside her on the couch. I'm interested, he said quietly. I have been since that night at the gala, but I'm also aware of the power dynamic here. I'm the one who gave you this house, these resources. You might feel obligated. I don't. You say that now. But what happens in a month? 6 months? When you're more stable and realize you agreed to something out of gratitude rather than genuine feeling. His hand found hers. I won't take advantage of your vulnerability, Evelyn, even if it kills me. Her heart was hammering. What if it's not about gratitude? What if I just feel something? Then we wait. Until you're certain. Until there's no question in either of our minds that you're choosing me freely, not because I helped you escape. He lifted her hand, pressed a kiss to her knuckles. You're worth waiting for. The tenderness in the gesture made her eyes sting. How long do we wait? As long as it takes. He released her hand and stood. I should go. Let you get some rest. You could stay, Evelyn said before she could stop herself. His expression flickered, want and restraint warring visibly. Not yet. Ask me again when you're sure. He left, and Evelyn sat in the quiet living room, touching the spot where his lips had brushed her skin. She was falling for him. Maybe had been since that first dance, and that terrified her more than Claudia ever could. The breaking point came a week later. Evelyn had been grocery shopping, a simple errand that felt revolutionary after months of cooking only what Claudia demanded. She was walking back to her car, bags in hand, when a black SUV pulled up beside her. The window rolled down. Victoria. Get in, she said. We need to talk. I have nothing to say to you. Fine. Then listen. Victoria's expression was cold. You're destroying our family. Mother is having panic attacks. The rumors about you have made us social pariahs, all because you're too selfish to see that we were trying to help you. Evelyn laughed, bitter and sharp. Help me? You turned me into a servant in my own home. We gave you purpose, structure. You were falling apart after Daddy died, and we held you together. Victoria leaned closer. But now you've thrown that away for some criminal who's using you for whatever sick game he's playing. Luca Moretti is dangerous. Everyone knows it. And when he's done with you, you'll have nothing. No family, no home, no future. Victoria's voice dropped. Come back. We'll forget this whole thing happened. You can have your room back, your life back. I don't want that life back. You're being stupid and stubborn. I'm being free. For the first time since you and your mother walked into my house and started taking it apart piece by piece. Evelyn stepped closer to the car. I know what you did, Victoria. The lies you told my friends, the way you isolated me, the systematic destruction of everything I had. I did what I had to do to protect my mother. You think I wanted to share my father with some brat who thought she was better than us? He wasn't your father, and I never thought I was better. I just wanted to belong somewhere. Well, you don't belong anywhere now. Victoria's smile was cruel. Enjoy your criminal boyfriend while it lasts. When he dumps you, and he will, don't come crawling back to us. She rolled up the window and drove away. Evelyn stood in the parking lot, shaking with rage and grief, and something that felt uncomfortably like vindication. She'd known Victoria hated her, but hearing it said so plainly with such venom confirmed that leaving had been the only option. She drove home and called Luca. Victoria confronted me, she said when he answered, in a parking lot, told me to come back or I'd end up with nothing. Are you okay? I'm angry, but I'm okay. She sank onto the couch. She said you're dangerous, that you're using me. What do you think? I think if you were using me, I'd already know what you wanted in return. And I think dangerous is relative. She paused. Are you dangerous? Yes. No hesitation. To people who threaten what's mine. Am I yours? The question hung in the air. You're your own, Luca said finally, but I'm invested in your safety and well-being, which means anyone who threatens you threatens me. That's not an answer. It's the only answer I can give right now. His voice roughened. Ask me again when we're in the same room. Come over. Evelyn, please, I don't want to be alone right now. He was there in 15 minutes. When she opened the door, he pulled her into his arms without a word. She buried her face in his chest and finally let herself cry. Not from sadness, but from the release of months of tension. He held her until the tears stopped, then guided her to the couch and sat beside her. Tell me what you need, he said. I need to know this is real, that I'm not making another mistake by trusting you. It's real, and you're not. He cupped her face gently. I can't promise I'm not dangerous. I can't promise my world won't touch yours in ways that are complicated. But I can promise I will never lie to you, never manipulate you, never make you feel like you're less than you are. Victoria said you'd get bored with me. Victoria is projecting. She can't imagine someone wanting you for who you are rather than what you can provide, because that's how her mind works. His thumb brushed away a stray tear. I'm not bored. I'm captivated and terrified I'm going to screw this up. You're terrified? I've built empires and faced down men who kill for sport. But the idea of hurting you, even accidentally, scares me more than any of that. Evelyn's breath caught. I'm falling for you. I know. Is that okay? It's more than okay. He seemed to struggle for words. It's the best thing that's happened to me in years. Then why do we keep waiting? Because I need you to be sure. Completely, unquestionably sure. Not grateful, not dependent, not reacting to what your family did, but genuinely choosing this. Choosing me. Evelyn looked at him. This man who'd crossed a ballroom to dance with her, who'd given her freedom without asking for anything in return, who'd held her while she cried and taught her that strength could coexist with vulnerability. I'm sure, she said. Evelyn, I'm sure, she repeated, stronger this time. I know the difference between gratitude and feeling. I know what it's like to be manipulated, and this isn't that. This is me choosing you because you make me want to be brave. Luca's eyes searched hers for a long moment. Then he kissed her. It was gentle at first, a question rather than a demand. But when she kissed him back, threading her fingers through his hair and pulling him closer, gentleness gave way to heat. He tasted like coffee and certainty. His hands cradled her face like she was something precious. And when he finally pulled back, both of them breathing hard, his eyes were dark with want. We're doing this? He asked. We're doing this. Then you need to understand something. I don't do casual. I don't do temporary. If we start this, I'm all in. Good, Evelyn said, because I'm tired of people who aren't. He kissed her again, deeper this time, and she felt the last pieces of her old life fall away. She wasn't the girl who'd scrubbed floors in the Carter mansion. She wasn't invisible or unwanted or less than. She was Evelyn Carter, choosing her own path. And for the first time in months, she believed she deserved everything good that path might hold. But neither of them knew that the choice to be together had just painted a target on her back, or that Claudia's defeat had made her desperate enough to reach out to people even more dangerous than Luca. The real battle was just beginning. 3 weeks passed in a blur of stolen moments and careful rebuilding. Evelyn enrolled in online classes through a community college, working toward the credits she'd need to transfer somewhere better once the estate case was resolved. Luca came by most evenings, bringing dinner or just his presence, and they'd talk for hours about everything and nothing. He told her stories about building his business from the ground up, about the choices that had shaped him into someone both feared and respected. She told him about her mother, about the girl she'd been before grief had reshaped her world. They were careful with each other in those early weeks, learning boundaries and preferences, building something that felt solid enough to trust. Evelyn hadn't heard from Claudia or Victoria since the parking lot confrontation. Patricia said that was normal, a strategic retreat before the next offensive. But as days turned into weeks without incident, Evelyn started to believe she might actually be free. She should have known better. The first warning came on a Thursday afternoon. Evelyn had been at Morrison's bookstore, lost in the stacks, when her phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. She almost deleted it without reading, assuming it was spam. You need to be more careful about who you trust. Her stomach clenched. She typed back quickly. Who is this? Someone who knows what Luca Moretti really is. Check your email. Her hand shook as she opened her email app. A new message sat at the top of her inbox, no subject line, from an address that was just random letters and numbers. Inside was a single PDF file. Evelyn's finger hovered over it. Every instinct screamed this was a trap, manipulation, another one of Claudia's games. But curiosity won. The PDF contained newspaper articles, police reports, and court documents spanning the last 15 years. All of them featured Luca's name. Some were business deals that had ended in lawsuits. Others were investigations into his companies, most dismissed for lack of evidence, but the implication was clear. Then came the photos. Luca with men she recognized from news coverage of organized crime. Luca leaving buildings the articles identified as fronts for illegal operations. Luca at funerals of people who died under suspicious circumstances. The final page was a death certificate. Marcus Romano, age 34. Cause of death. Gunshot wound to the chest. Below it, a note in red text. Ask Luca what happened to the last person who betrayed him. Evelyn's vision blurred. She closed the email and sat down hard on a nearby bench, trying to catch her breath. This was what Claudia wanted. To make her doubt, to poison the one good thing she'd found, to prove that leaving had been a mistake. But the documents looked real. The photos were dated and verifiable, and Luca himself had admitted he was dangerous. To people who threaten what's mine, he'd said. What did that mean, exactly? Her phone rang. Luca. She stared at his name on the screen, then silenced the call. She needed to think, to process this without his presence clouding her judgment. Instead of going home, she walked. Miles through the city, past landmarks and memories, trying to reconcile the man who'd held her while she cried with the one in those photos. By the time she finally returned to the brownstone, the sun was setting and her feet ached. Luca's car was parked outside. He was sitting on her front steps, and the relief that crossed his face when he saw her was almost enough to break her resolve. Where have you been? I've been calling for hours. I needed to think. She climbed the steps slowly. Can we talk inside? Something in her voice made his expression shift. What happened? She unlocked the door without answering and led him to the living room. Then she pulled out her phone and showed him the email. Luca read in silence, his face growing harder with each page. When he reached the death certificate, his jaw tightened. Who sent this? His voice was dangerously quiet. I don't know. Unknown number. Your stepmother. Probably. Does it matter? Evelyn sank onto the couch. Is it true? Which part? Any of it, all of it, the companies, the connections, Marcus Romano. She forced herself to meet his eyes. Did you kill him? Luca set down the phone carefully. You want the truth? I deserve it. You do. He moved to the window, staring out at the darkening street. Marcus Romano worked for me. Handled logistics for some of my shipping operations. 3 years ago, he started skimming profits. Small amounts at first, then larger. When I confronted him, he threatened to go to the police with information about my business dealings. Evelyn's chest tightened. What did you do? I gave him a choice. Return what he'd stolen and leave the city or face consequences. Luca's reflection in the window was stone. He chose option 3. He went to my competitors with everything he knew about my operations, tried to sell the information to take me down, and 2 days later he was dead, shot outside a bar in a neighborhood where my competitors operate. He turned to face her. I didn't pull the trigger, Evelyn, but I won't pretend I mourned him either. Did you order it? No, but I knew what would happen when he went to them. They don't tolerate loose ends. His eyes were dark and unreadable. I could have warned him, could have tried harder to protect him, even after his betrayal. I didn't. The admission hung between them. So you let him die, Evelyn said slowly. I let him face the consequences of his choices. Yes. And the rest of this, the connections, the investigations? All true. My businesses operate in gray areas. I have relationships with people who do things I'd rather you not know about. I've made decisions that prioritize power over morality. He crossed to where she sat and knelt in front of her, forcing her to meet his eyes. I told you I was dangerous. This is what that means. Evelyn's hands shook. Why are you telling me this? You could lie. Make it all sound better than it is. Because you asked for truth, and I won't start this relationship by being anything less than honest with you. His hand covered hers. But I need you to understand something. The man in those photos, the one who built an empire in spaces most people are too afraid to touch, that's part of who I am. But it's not all of who I am. How do I know which version I'm getting? Because the version you get is the one I choose to be with you, and I choose to be someone worthy of your trust. His grip tightened. I can't erase my past, can't pretend I'm something I'm not, but I can promise you that the violence, the ruthlessness, it stops at your door. You will never be part of that world unless you choose to be. And if I can't handle it, if this is too much, pain flickered across his face. Then I walk away. No pressure, no manipulation, no making you feel guilty for setting boundaries. He released her hand and stood. But I need you to decide now, Evelyn. Because if you stay, Claudia and Victoria will keep sending things like this. They'll try to break us apart because they know it's the best way to break you, and I won't watch you be torn apart by doubt. Evelyn stared at him. This man who'd saved her and terrified her in equal measure. This man who'd admitted to letting someone die but had never made her feel anything but safe. The smart choice would be to walk away, to thank him for his help and build a life that didn't include connections to dangerous people and morally gray decisions. But smart hadn't gotten her anywhere except scrubbing floors for people who hated her. I'm not going anywhere, she said quietly. Evelyn, I'm not naive. I know what you are, but I also know what you've been for me. And I know that the person who sent this email wants me to be afraid of you more than she wants me to be safe. She stood, closing the distance between them. I choose to trust you, not because I'm blind to who you are, but because I see all of it, and I'm choosing you anyway. Luca's expression cracked. He pulled her into his arms, burying his face in her hair. I don't deserve you, he murmured. Probably not, but you're stuck with me anyway. He laughed, the sound rough and relieved. Then he pulled back just enough to kiss her, hard and grateful and full of promises neither of them could speak yet. When they finally broke apart, Evelyn's phone was buzzing again. Another unknown number, another text. Wrong choice. Her blood went cold. Luca took the phone from her hands and read the message. His expression went flat and deadly. Pack a bag, he said. What? Now, Evelyn. Enough for a few days. You're not staying here tonight. Luca, you're scaring me. Good. You should be scared. He was already moving, checking windows and doors with practiced efficiency. This isn't just harassment anymore. That text is a threat. From Claudia? Maybe. Or maybe she's reached out to people who handle problems more permanently. He pulled out his phone and made a call. Marco, I need security on the brownstone address I gave you last month. 2 men, armed, starting now. and I need the penthouse prepped for a guest." Evelyn's legs felt weak. "You think she'd actually hurt me?" "I think desperate people do desperate things, and your stepmother just lost a substantial amount of money in the preliminary estate hearings. She's backed into a corner, and cornered animals bite." He ended the call and turned to her. "I'm not taking chances with your safety. Pack. We're leaving in 5 minutes." She stumbled upstairs and threw clothes into a duffel bag with shaking hands. This was real. This was actually happening. Claudia wasn't just trying to manipulate her back home. She was trying to eliminate the problem entirely. When she came back downstairs, Luca was at the door, speaking in low tones to 2 men who looked like they ate threats for breakfast. They nodded at whatever he said and took up positions outside. "Car's out back," Luca said, taking her bag. "Stay close to me." They moved quickly through the house and out the rear entrance to where his car waited in the alley. Evelyn's heart hammered the entire drive, every set of headlights behind them making her flinch. Luca noticed. His hand found hers in the darkness. "I won't let anything happen to you," he said. "You can't promise that." "Watch me." They reached his penthouse building without incident. The elevator ride up felt endless. When the doors finally opened into his apartment, Evelyn nearly collapsed with relief. "Guest room is down the hall," Luca said. "Or you can stay in mine. Your choice." "Yours," she said without hesitation. "I don't want to be alone right now." Something in his expression softened. "Okay." He led her to his bedroom, a space she'd never seen before. It was surprisingly understated, no flashy displays of wealth, just clean lines and comfortable furniture and windows that overlooked the city. "Shower if you want. I'll make some calls, figure out where the threat is coming from." He paused at the door. "Try to get some rest. Tomorrow we'll plan next steps." "Luca?" He turned back. "Thank you for keeping me safe." "Always," he said simply, and left her alone. Evelyn showered until the hot water ran cold, trying to wash away the fear and adrenaline. When she finally emerged, wrapped in one of Luca's shirts because it felt safer than her own clothes, she found him sitting on the edge of the bed, staring at his phone with an expression that made her stomach drop. "What is it?" He looked up, and the fury in his eyes was barely controlled. "Marco just sent me security footage from your brownstone. Someone tried to break in 20 minutes after we left." Her blood turned to ice. "Who?" "2 men. Professionals, not amateurs. They disabled the front camera, but the backup caught them." He handed her the phone. The footage was grainy but clear enough. 2 figures in dark clothes, moving with purpose, working on her front door with tools that suggested they'd done this before. "What were they going to do?" she whispered. "Nothing good. My men scared them off before they got inside." Luca's jaw was tight enough to crack. "But the message is clear. This isn't about getting you back anymore. It's about removing you as an obstacle." Evelyn sank onto the bed. "What do I do?" "You let me handle it." "Handle it how?" His silence was answer enough. "No," she said. "No violence. No, whatever it is you're thinking. I won't be responsible for someone getting hurt. Even someone trying to hurt you? I didn't leave one toxic situation to create another one. There has to be another way." Luca studied her for a long moment. Then he nodded slowly. "Okay, we do it your way. But that means we accelerate the legal case, we get restraining orders with teeth, and we make it very clear to everyone involved that you're protected." He paused. "And you stay here until it's safe, non-negotiable." "For how long?" "As long as it takes." Living with Luca was different than visiting him. In those first few days, Evelyn discovered his rhythms, the way he woke before dawn to work out, the way he took calls at all hours in multiple languages, the way he cooked breakfast on the rare mornings he wasn't already gone when she emerged from his bedroom. They were careful with each other at first, polite almost to the point of awkwardness, but gradually the walls came down. She learned that he read voraciously, everything from philosophy to thriller novels, that he had a scar on his ribs from a knife fight when he was 19, that he hated tomatoes but would eat them if she cooked something with them because he didn't want to seem ungrateful. He learned that she hummed when she was concentrating, that she'd inherited her mother's terrible sense of direction, that she cried at commercials but stayed stoic through horror movies. They built something in those stolen weeks, something that felt less like shelter from a storm and more like home. But the storm was coming closer. Patricia called on a Tuesday with an update on the estate case. The forensic accountant found irregularities in the documents Claudia filed, she said, and Evelyn could hear the satisfaction in her voice. Your father's signature on the final codicil doesn't match his other legal documents. We're calling in a handwriting expert, but it looks like forgery. Evelyn's hand tightened on the phone. She forged his signature? It appears so. Which means the codicil giving her control is invalid. Which means you should have inherited everything free and clear when you turned 18. Patricia paused. This changes the game, Evelyn. We're not just talking about reclaiming your inheritance anymore. We're talking about fraud charges. Potentially criminal prosecution. How long until we know for sure? 2 weeks for the expert analysis, then we file. After that, it moves quickly. After she hung up, Evelyn told Luca everything. He listened in silence, his expression unreadable. This is good news, she said. Right? It means I might actually get everything back. It also means Claudia is about to become exponentially more dangerous. Right now, she's fighting to keep what she stole. If she knows she's going to lose it anyway, she has nothing left to lose. His eyes met hers. People with nothing to lose make catastrophic choices. So what do? We wait, we prepare, and we make sure you're protected every second until this is over. The protection manifested in subtle ways. Luca's driver started accompanying her anywhere she needed to go. The penthouse building added extra security. When she went to meet with Patricia, 2 of Luca's men waited outside the office building. It should have felt suffocating. Instead, it felt like being valued enough that someone cared if she lived or died. But the waiting was agony. Every day that passed without incident felt like holding her breath. Every phone call made her jump. Every knock at the door sent adrenaline flooding through her veins. Luca noticed. Talk to me, he said one night as they sat on his couch. The city lights spread below them. What's going on in your head? I feel like I'm waiting for the other shoe to drop. Like this can't possibly work out because nothing else has. That's the trauma talking. Claudia spent months teaching you that you don't deserve good things. What if she's right? She's not. He pulled her closer. But even if she were, even if you somehow deserved less than everything good this world has to offer, which you don't, I'd still choose you. Every day. Without hesitation. Evelyn's throat tightened. Why? Because you're brave and kind and stronger than anyone gives you credit for. Because you make me want to be better than I am. Because when I'm with you, the parts of me that are broken feel less jagged. He kissed her forehead. Because I'm in love with you and there's no logic to it except that it's true. The words hit her like a physical force. You love me? Yes. I have for a while now. I just didn't want to say it while you were still figuring out who you are outside of survival mode. His hand cupped her face. But I'm tired of not saying it. I love you, Evelyn Carter, and I'm not going anywhere. Tears spilled down her cheeks. I love you too. I think I have since you crossed that ballroom. Then we're both idiots for waiting this long to say it. She laughed through her tears and kissed him, and for a few perfect minutes the fear receded and there was only this, the 2 of them, choosing each other, building something that felt strong enough to last. The shoe dropped 3 days later. Evelyn was in Luca's study, working on an essay for her online class, when her phone rang. Unknown number. She almost didn't answer, but something made her pick up. Hello? Evelyn Carter. A woman's voice, professional and unfamiliar. Yes? This is Officer Martinez with the city police. I need you to come down to the station. We have some questions regarding an incident involving Claudia Carter. Evelyn's stomach dropped. What kind of incident? I'd rather discuss it in person. Can you come in this afternoon? Yes, I can be there in an hour. She hung up and immediately called Luca. He answered on the first ring. What's wrong? The police called. They want to talk to me about Claudia. They wouldn't say what happened. Don't go alone. I'll meet you there with Patricia. And Evelyn? His voice dropped. Don't say anything without a lawyer present. Understand? You think it's a trap? I think we don't take chances. See you in 30 minutes. The police station was exactly as intimidating as Evelyn had imagined. Cold fluorescent lights, scuffed floors, the smell of bad coffee, and bureaucracy. Patricia met her at the entrance, Luca a step behind. Let me do the talking, Patricia said. If they ask you direct questions, keep your answers brief and factual. Do not speculate. Do not volunteer information. Do not let them pressure you into saying anything you're not certain about. They were led to an interview room where Officer Martinez waited, a woman in her 40s with tired eyes and a neutral expression. Miss Carter, thank you for coming in. I'm sorry to bring you here, but we have a delicate situation. She pulled out a folder. Claudia Carter filed a report yesterday claiming you've been sending her threatening messages. She's provided screenshots and is requesting a restraining order against you. Evelyn's mouth fell open. That's insane. I haven't contacted her in over a month. Can you prove that? Patricia interjected smoothly. My client has no obligation to prove a negative. If Mrs. Carter is making accusations, the burden of proof is on her. We understand that, but we'd like to examine Miss Carter's phone records to verify her claim. Not without a warrant, Patricia said. Unless you have specific evidence of a crime, this sounds like civil harassment at best. Officer Martinez sighed. Look, I'll be honest, this feels like a domestic dispute that's escalated, but we have to investigate all claims. If you can provide voluntary proof that you haven't been contacting Mrs. Carter, it would expedite the process. Luca leaned forward. What kind of threats are we talking about? Martinez pulled out printed screenshots, messages from a number Evelyn didn't recognize but somehow linked to her name. Threats to expose Claudia's fraud. Threats to make her pay for what she'd done. I didn't send these, Evelyn said. I don't even recognize that number. It's a messaging app. Anyone can create an account with any name. Martinez looked apologetic. Mrs. Carter claims you're harassing her as revenge for the estate dispute. My client has been the victim of harassment, not the perpetrator, Patricia said coldly. In fact, we have documented evidence of Mrs. Carter's attempts to intimidate and threaten Miss Carter, including a break-in attempt at her residence just last week. That got Martinez's attention. You filed a report? We have private security footage. We can provide it. The interview continued for another 30 minutes, with Patricia expertly deflecting and redirecting until Martinez finally admitted they had no real case. I'll note in the file that you've denied the allegations and offered evidence to the contrary, she said, but I'd suggest both of you stay away from each other until the estate case is resolved. Gladly, Evelyn said. They left the station into afternoon sunlight that felt surreal after the fluorescent interior. She's desperate, Patricia said. This was a Hail Mary attempt to paint you as unstable and harassing. It won't stick, but it'll be in the record if we go to court. Is that bad? Evelyn asked. It's annoying, but we have bigger ammunition. Patricia's smile was sharp. The handwriting analysis came back this morning. Definitive forgery. Your father's signature on that codicil was faked, which means Claudia Carter is about to face fraud charges, and every decision she made regarding the estate is invalid. Evelyn's knees went weak. Luca's arm around her waist was the only thing keeping her upright. When do we file? He asked. Tomorrow morning. By tomorrow afternoon, the estate will be frozen, and Claudia will be served with notice of the criminal investigation. Patricia looked at Evelyn. By the end of the week, everything your father left you will be back under your control, and Claudia will be fighting to stay out of prison. It was everything Evelyn had hoped for. So why did victory feel so terrifying? That night, back at the penthouse, she couldn't settle. Paced from room to room, her mind racing with possibilities and consequences. Luca watched her from the couch, patient and quiet. Talk to me, he said finally. I thought I'd feel different. Relieved, maybe. Vindicated. But I just feel... She struggled for the word. Scared. Of what? Of what she'll do when she realizes she's lost. Of what comes after this. Of everything changing again. She sank down beside him. I'm getting everything back, and somehow that feels more overwhelming than having nothing. Change is always terrifying, even good change. His hand found hers. But you're not alone in this. Whatever comes next, we face it together. Promise? I promise. She leaned into him, letting his solidity anchor her. Tomorrow, Patricia would file. Tomorrow, Claudia's world would start crumbling. Tomorrow, Evelyn would reclaim everything that had been stolen from her. But tonight, she just wanted to be here. Safe. Loved. Whole. I'm scared of losing you too, she admitted quietly. When this is all over, and I don't need rescuing anymore, What if... Stop. Luca turned her to face him. I'm not here because you need rescuing. I'm here because I choose to be, because you make my life better, because I can't imagine my days without you in them. His thumb brushed her cheek. You could have everything in the world, complete independence, total security, and I'd still want you, still choose you, still love you. You promise? Every day for the rest of my life, if you'll let me. She kissed him then, pouring everything she couldn't say into the contact. Gratitude and fear and hope and love all tangled together. When they finally broke apart, breathless and clinging to each other, Evelyn realized something fundamental had shifted. She wasn't waiting to be saved anymore. She was choosing to be loved, and that made all the difference. But dawn was coming fast, and with it the final confrontation with the woman who'd tried to destroy her. Patricia filed the papers at 9 o'clock the next morning. By 9:30, the estate was frozen. By 10, Claudia had been served with notice of the fraud investigation and a court order to cease all financial transactions related to the Carter assets. By noon, Evelyn's phone was ringing off the hook. She didn't answer. Luca had made her promise not to engage, and she was keeping that promise even as her stepmother's increasingly frantic voicemails piled up. Evelyn, please, there's been a misunderstanding. We need to talk. You're making a terrible mistake. Those lawyers are lying to you. How dare you accuse me of fraud after everything I've done for you? You ungrateful little brat. I'll destroy you for this. The progression from pleading to rage took less than 2 hours. Luca listened to each voicemail with an expression carved from granite. Save all of these. Forward them to Patricia. This is evidence of harassment. She sounds desperate, Evelyn said softly. She is desperate. And desperate people are unpredictable. He pulled her close. Marco's outside. 2 more men are watching the building. You don't go anywhere alone until this is resolved. You really think she'd try something? I think we don't find out the hard way. The next blow came that afternoon. Evelyn was reviewing discovery documents for the estate case when her phone buzzed with a news alert. She almost ignored it, but the headline caught her eye. Carter family estate dispute turns criminal. Fraud investigation underway. Her stomach dropped as she opened the article. Someone had leaked the story to the press, complete with details about the forged signature, the frozen assets, and Claudia's impending legal troubles. But the article didn't stop there. It also mentioned Evelyn's relationship with Luca, painting it in the worst possible light. Sources close to the family suggest that Evelyn Carter, 18, may have been influenced by her relationship with controversial businessman Luca Moretti, known for his connections to organized crime, in pursuing these charges against her stepmother. They're trying to discredit me, Evelyn said, showing Luca the article, making it look like you're manipulating me. Claudia's playing dirty. She knows she's losing on the legal front, so she's trying to win in the court of public opinion. Luca's jaw tightened as he read. I'm sorry, I knew my reputation might splash back on you, but I'd hoped... I don't care what they write about us. Evelyn took his hand. I know the truth. That's what matters. The truth doesn't always win against a good story. Then we'll make sure it does. Patricia called minutes later, having seen the same article. This is defamation. We can sue. But more importantly, we need to control the narrative. I'm recommending we release a statement. Saying what? Evelyn asked. The facts. That you're the rightful heir to your father's estate. That your stepmother committed fraud to steal your inheritance. That you're simply reclaiming what was always yours. Patricia paused. And that your personal relationships have no bearing on the validity of the legal case. Will it help? It'll put us on the record. Whether people believe it depends on how much they want to side with the sympathetic widow versus the allegedly ungrateful stepdaughter. They released the statement that evening. By morning, the story had exploded across every local news outlet and social media platform. People Evelyn had never met had opinions about her character, her choices, her relationship with Luca. Spoiled rich girl trying to steal from the woman who raised her. Gold digger using her criminal boyfriend to intimidate a grieving widow. Another entitled brat who thinks the world owes her everything. But there were other voices, too. If the signature was forged, that's not a family dispute, that's theft. Why is everyone assuming the stepmother is innocent? Plenty of people have been scammed by family. Maybe we should wait for the facts before crucifying an 18-year-old. A Jennifer Walsh, her former friend from school, posted a long thread defending her. I've known Evelyn since we were kids. She's not the person the media is painting her as. Her stepmother isolated her, made her a servant in her own home, and systematically destroyed her life. If she's fighting back now, maybe we should ask why it took her this long instead of judging her for finally being brave enough. Evelyn cried when she read it. She'd thought all her old friends had written her off. Knowing at least one had been paying attention, had seen what was happening, meant more than she could articulate. But the media circus also meant increased scrutiny. Reporters started calling. Camera crews showed up outside Luca's building. Someone dug up photos of Evelyn from the gala, the one where she'd looked like a servant playing dress-up, and splashed them across gossip sites with cruel commentary. Stay inside, Luca said. Let them get bored and move on to the next story. But Claudia wasn't getting bored. 2 days after the story broke, Patricia called with urgent news. Claudia's lawyer just filed a countersuit. She's claiming you coerced her into signing over financial control by threatening to expose fabricated abuse allegations. She's also requesting an emergency hearing to maintain control of the estate pending investigation. Can she do that? Evelyn's voice shook. She can try. The judge will see through it, but it buys her time. And time means she can keep liquidating assets before we can stop her. Patricia's frustration bled through. We need to accelerate our timeline. Get in front of a judge as fast as possible. How fast? I'm pushing for an emergency hearing this week. But Evelyn, you need to be prepared. Claudia is going to paint you as an unstable girl under the influence of a dangerous man. She'll make you seem incompetent, emotional, unreliable. So I need to be none of those things. Exactly. Calm, collected, credible. Can you do that? Evelyn thought about the girl she'd been 6 months ago, the one who'd scrubbed floors and accepted cruelty as normal, the one who'd believed she deserved nothing better. That girl was gone. I can do that, she said. The emergency hearing was scheduled for Thursday morning. Luca hired a stylist to help Evelyn look the part, professional, mature, nothing like the disheveled girl from the gala photos. She settled on a navy dress and minimal jewelry, her hair pulled back in a simple style that said, competent young woman, not traumatized teenager. You look strong, Luca said that morning as they prepared to leave. I don't feel strong. Fake it, you're good at that. He adjusted her collar gently. I can't come into the courtroom with you. My presence would only reinforce their narrative. But I'll be right outside. And the second you walk out those doors, I'll be there. I wish you could be with me. So do I. But you don't need me for this. You never did. He kissed her forehead. Go show them who Evelyn Carter really is. The courthouse was a zoo. News vans lined the street. Reporters shouted questions as Patricia shepherded Evelyn through the entrance. Camera flashes made her vision spot. Don't react, Patricia murmured. Eyes forward, confident. They made it through security and into the courtroom just as Claudia arrived from the opposite entrance. Evelyn's breath caught. Her stepmother looked immaculate. Designer suit, perfect makeup, an expression of dignified suffering that probably played well for the cameras. Victoria stood beside her, looking equally polished and victimized. When Claudia's eyes met Evelyn's across the courtroom, there was no warmth, no pretense of familial concern, just cold, calculating hatred. Evelyn lifted her chin and held her gaze. She wasn't afraid anymore. Judge Helena Morrison took the bench promptly at 9. She was a woman in her 60s with steel gray hair and an expression that suggested she had no patience for nonsense. This is an emergency hearing regarding the estate of James Carter, deceased, and allegations of fraud pertaining to the management of said estate. Let's keep this focused on facts, not theatrics. She looked pointedly at both legal teams. Counselors, present your cases. Patricia went first, laying out the evidence methodically. The forged signature on the codicil, the suspicious timing of its creation, the financial irregularities in how Claudia had managed the estate, the systematic isolation and financial abuse of the rightful heir. Claudia's lawyer countered with equal precision. He painted Evelyn as a troubled girl who'd fallen under bad influences. He brought up her withdrawn behavior in the months after her father's death, suggesting mental instability. He referenced Luca's reputation, implying that Evelyn had been manipulated into these accusations. Miss Carter, Judge Morrison said finally, I'd like to hear from you directly. Can you explain in your own words what led to these proceedings? Evelyn stood, her legs steadier than she'd expected. Your Honor, after my father died, I was 17 and grieving. My stepmother took advantage of that grief to systematically strip away my independence. She dismissed the household staff and made me take over their duties. She cut off my access to money, sold my possessions, and isolated me from my friends. By the time I turned 18, I was essentially a servant in my own home. That's a serious allegation, the judge said. Do you have evidence? I have testimony from former staff members who witnessed it. I have text messages and emails showing the isolation. I have medical records showing I lost 15 pounds in 6 months because I wasn't eating properly. I was too busy cooking elaborate meals for my stepmother and stepsister to feed myself. Evelyn's voice remained steady. But the strongest evidence is the forged signature on the codicil. My father would never have intentionally left me under her control. She created that document to steal my inheritance. You're very certain of that. I'm certain my father loved me. I'm certain he wanted me taken care of. And I'm certain that the woman who spent the last year making my life miserable isn't interested in my welfare. She's interested in my money. Claudia's lawyer shot to his feet. Objection. Miss Carter is clearly being coached. By whom? Patricia interjected. Her lawyer. That's literally my job. By Luca Moretti, who has a vested interest in controlling the Carter fortune through his relationship with Miss Carter. Mr. Moretti has no financial interest in my client's estate, Patricia said coldly. He's not named in any documents, has no legal claim to any assets, and has in fact provided substantial financial support to Miss Carter independent of her inheritance. If anything, he's been the only person ensuring she had resources while her stepmother was systematically stealing from her. Judge Morrison held up a hand. Enough. This hearing is about the validity of the codicil and the management of the estate, not about Miss Carter's personal relationships. She turned to Claudia. Mrs. Carter, I've reviewed the handwriting analysis. The expert opinion is clear. The signature on the codicil does not match your late husband's verified signatures on other legal documents. Can you explain that discrepancy? Claudia stood, and for the first time, Evelyn saw her stepmother's composure crack slightly. Your Honor, James was under significant stress in the months before his death. His handwriting changed. He was distracted, worried about the business. The expert accounted for variations in stress and aging, the judge interrupted. This isn't a variation. This is a different hand entirely. The stroke patterns, the pressure points, even the letter formations are inconsistent. Then there's been a mistake in the analysis. Multiple experts have reviewed the documents independently, all reached the same conclusion. Judge Morrison's expression hardened. Mrs. Carter, did you or did you not forge your late husband's signature on the codicil, giving you control of his estate? The courtroom went silent. Claudia's lawyer whispered urgently to her. She shook her head, then looked directly at the judge. I did what I had to do to protect this family. James would have wanted... That's a confession, Patricia said quietly. The judge's gavel came down. Mrs. Carter, you're admitting to fraud? I'm admitting to ensuring that my husband's assets were properly managed instead of being squandered by a teenager who had no concept of that teenager was the legal heir. You had no right to forge documents to steal her inheritance. Judge Morrison's voice was ice. The codicil is hereby declared invalid. All decisions made under its authority are reversed. The estate of James Carter is to be transferred to his daughter, Evelyn Carter, effective immediately. Evelyn's knees nearly gave out. Patricia's hand on her arm kept her upright. Furthermore, the judge continued, I'm referring this matter to the district attorney for criminal prosecution. Mrs. Carter, you should consult with your attorney about the charges you're likely to face. Claudia's face went white. Your Honor, please, this hearing is concluded. The gavel came down again, final and definitive. Evelyn stood frozen as the courtroom erupted in murmurs. Patricia was saying something probably important, but Evelyn couldn't hear over the rushing in her ears. She'd won. After everything, after months of suffering and fear and doubt, she'd actually won. Across the aisle, Claudia was screaming at her lawyer, her perfect composure shattered. Victoria looked shell-shocked, probably calculating how this affected her own future. Evelyn felt nothing for them. Not anger, not satisfaction, not even pity. Just relief that they no longer had power over her. Patricia guided her out of the courtroom through a side exit, avoiding the press. True to his word, Luca was waiting in the hallway. He took one look at her face and pulled her into his arms. "You did it," he murmured into her hair. "We did it," she corrected, holding on tight. "How do you feel?" "Like I can finally breathe." They made it out of the courthouse and into Luca's car before the tears came. Not from sadness, but from the overwhelming release of months of tension. Luca held her while she cried, murmuring reassurances, anchoring her through the storm of emotion. When she finally calmed, he handed her his handkerchief and smiled. "What do you want to do first?" he asked. "What do you mean?" "You just got your life back, your inheritance, your freedom, your future. So what's the first thing you want to do with it?" Evelyn thought about it. The Carter mansion would be hers again, along with her father's investments and everything Claudia had controlled. She could go back to school, travel, do anything she wanted. But none of those things seemed urgent. "I want to go home," she said. "To the mansion?" "To the brownstone. To your place. Wherever you are. That's home now." Luca's expression softened in a way she'd never seen before. "Evelyn, I know it's fast. I know we're still figuring this out. But the one thing I'm sure of is that I don't want to do any of this without you." She took his hand. "So wherever we end up, whatever comes next, I want it to be we, not just me." He kissed her then, gentle and reverent, like she was something precious. "We," he agreed. "I like the sound of that." The fallout from the hearing was swift and brutal. Claudia was arrested 3 days later on fraud charges. The DA moved quickly, probably motivated by the high-profile nature of the case. She made bail, but her assets were frozen and her reputation destroyed. Victoria, who hadn't been directly involved in the forgery, avoided criminal charges but lost her meal ticket. Last Evelyn heard, she'd moved in with a friend and taken a job at a boutique, the kind of work she'd once looked down on. The mansion was returned to Evelyn's control. She walked through it one afternoon with Luca, seeing it with new eyes. "It feels smaller than I remember," she said, standing in the foyer beneath the chandelier her mother had loved. "You've grown. It stayed the same." "I don't think I want to live here." The words surprised her, but once spoken, she knew they were true. "Too many ghosts, too many memories of who I had to be in these walls. So sell it. Buy something new. Make it yours from the beginning." "What about you? Where do you want to live?" Luca looked at her carefully. "Is that an invitation?" "It's a question, because I meant what I said about we. If we're doing this, really doing this, then I want us to build something together. Not you giving me things, not me taking up space in your life, but us creating something that's ours." He was quiet for a long moment. Then he smiled, a real smile, unguarded and warm. "I'd like that. Though I should warn you, I'm terrible at compromising on interior design. Good thing I'm terrible at making decisions. We'll balance each other out." They sold the mansion to a developer who wanted to turn it into luxury apartments. Evelyn kept a few pieces, her mother's jewelry, family photos, the chandelier, and let the rest go. With the proceeds and her inheritance, she had more money than she'd ever imagined. Patricia helped her set up trusts and investments, ensuring her future was secure no matter what happened. But the money mattered less than the freedom it represented. She enrolled at the university her mother had attended, planning to study art history with a minor in business. She wanted to understand the beauty her mother had loved while also learning to protect herself financially. Luca supported every choice without trying to influence them, though she caught him smiling whenever she talked about her classes or future plans. "What?" she asked one night over dinner, takeout from their favorite Thai place, eaten on the floor of their new apartment because the furniture hadn't been delivered yet. "Nothing, just proud of you." "For what? Going to school? That's basic. For choosing what you want instead of what you think you should want. For building a life on your own terms." He reached across the containers to take her hand. "For being exactly who you are instead of who anyone else expected you to be. I couldn't have done it without you." "You could have, but I'm glad you didn't have to." They finished the new apartment in early spring, a penthouse in a different building with views of both the harbor and the city. It was modern and clean with none of the oppressive history of the Carter mansion. Evelyn hung her mother's chandelier in the dining room. The first time she turned it on, watching light scatter across the walls like hope, she cried. Luca found her standing beneath it, tears streaming. "Talk to me," he said softly. My mom used to say this chandelier caught light and turned it into something beautiful, that even the smallest flame could become something worth seeing. She wiped her eyes. I think I finally understand what she meant, that it's not about the light, it's about what you do with it, how you let it shine through the hard parts instead of getting buried by them. Your mother sounds like she was an incredible woman. She was. I wish you could have met her. I wish I could have too, but I think she'd be proud of who you've become. You think? I know, because you're exactly the kind of person worth being proud of. They stood together under the chandelier, and Evelyn felt pieces of herself that had been broken finally settle back into place. Not healed, she wasn't sure trauma ever fully healed, but whole enough to keep building, strong enough to keep choosing, brave enough to keep loving. The criminal trial for Claudia's fraud charges concluded in late summer. Evelyn attended the sentencing hearing not because she wanted to, but because she needed the closure. Claudia was given 18 months in minimum security prison and ordered to pay restitution, not that she had anything left to pay with. Her lawyer argued for leniency based on her age and lack of prior criminal history. The judge was unmoved. You exploited a grieving teenager for financial gain. You forged legal documents and systematically abused your position of trust. The sentence is appropriate to the crime. When Claudia was led out of the courtroom, she looked 20 years older than she had at the gala, broken and bitter and finally facing consequences. Evelyn felt nothing. No satisfaction, no vindication, no anger, just the quiet certainty that this chapter was finally, definitively closed. Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed with questions. How do you feel about the verdict? Do you think justice was served? What's next for you? Patricia started to intervene, but Evelyn shook her head. She'd spent months hiding, avoiding, letting others speak for her. Not anymore. I feel relieved, she said clearly, not because someone's going to prison, but because the truth finally came out. What my stepmother did was wrong, not just legally, but morally. She took advantage of grief and vulnerability for her own gain. The verdict confirms that. What about your relationship with Luca Moretti? Some have suggested, my relationship is private and has nothing to do with this case. Luca has been supportive and respectful, which is more than I can say for the people who were supposed to be my family. She paused, choosing her next words carefully. I'm 19 years old. I'm starting college in the fall. I'm building a life that I choose, with people I trust. That's my story. Not the gossip, not the speculation, just a girl who survived something hard and came out stronger. One more question. Do you have any message for young people in similar situations? Evelyn thought about that. About the girl she'd been, scrubbing floors and believing she deserved nothing better. About all the other kids out there in toxic homes, thinking escape was impossible. If you're being abused or controlled or made to feel worthless, you're not, and you're not stuck. It might take time, it might be scary, it might require help from people who seem unexpected, but you can get out. You can build something better. You deserve better. Her voice strengthened. Don't let anyone convince you that you're invisible. You matter. Your life matters. And the people who can't see that don't deserve space in your future. She walked away to the sound of cameras clicking, Luca waiting at the curb with the car door open. That was brave, he said as they pulled away. That was necessary. Someone needed to say it. You okay? Yeah, actually, I really am. And for the first time in over a year, it was completely true. They got married on a Saturday in October, exactly 1 year after the gala where they'd first danced. It wasn't the wedding Evelyn had once imagined. No massive ceremony, no hundreds of guests, no elaborate production. Just 30 people who actually mattered in a garden overlooking the harbor. Jennifer Walsh was there, along with a few other friends who'd reached out after the trial. Patricia came with her husband. Luca's small circle of trusted people filled out the rest. No family on Evelyn's side. That stung a little, but she'd made peace with it. Family wasn't always blood. Sometimes it was the people who chose you when they didn't have to. She wore a simple white dress, not vintage, not altered, not borrowed. Something she'd chosen herself because she loved it. Her mother's pearls at her throat were the only nod to the past. Luca wore a dark suit and looked at her like she hung the moon. When the officiant asked if she took him to be her husband, Evelyn didn't hesitate. I do. And do you, Luca Moretti, take this woman to be your lawfully wedded wife? I do. every day for the rest of my life. They exchanged simple bands. She'd insisted, despite Luca's desire to buy her something elaborate. I don't need expensive, I need permanent. When the officiant pronounced them married and Luca kissed her, Evelyn felt everything she'd been carrying finally lift. She was free. Not because she'd escaped Claudia or reclaimed her inheritance or won in court, but because she'd chosen this, chosen him, chosen a future built on love instead of fear. At the reception, Patricia raised a glass in toast. To Evelyn, who proved that strength isn't about never falling, it's about getting back up, and to Luca, who was smart enough to recognize something extraordinary when he saw it. She smiled. May your marriage be filled with the kind of love that makes everything else seem small. Hear, hear, Jennifer added, and may you never have to clean anyone else's kitchen again. Everyone laughed, including Evelyn. Later, as the sun set over the harbor and music played softly, Luca pulled her onto the makeshift dance floor. Remember the last time we danced? He murmured. How could I forget? You crossed an entire ballroom to choose me. Best decision I ever made. Even though I was a mess? You were never a mess. You were someone extraordinary, pretending to be invisible because the people around you were too blind to see you. He spun her gently. I saw you, Evelyn, from that first moment, and I haven't stopped seeing you since. I love you, she said, in case I haven't mentioned it recently. You mentioned it this morning, and last night, and approximately 40 times yesterday. He grinned, but feel free to keep saying it. I love you, I love you, I love you. There she is, the girl who was supposed to be invisible. Not invisible anymore. Never invisible. Not to me. They danced as the sky turned gold and purple, surrounded by people who loved them, building a future neither of them had imagined a year ago. Evelyn thought about her mother's chandelier, about catching light and turning it into something beautiful. She thought about this girl she'd been, broken and scared and convinced she deserved nothing better, and she thought about who she'd become, strong and loved, and finally free. The journey from servant to chosen hadn't been easy, but standing here, married to a man who'd seen her worth when no one else had, surrounded by people who actually valued her, Evelyn knew it had been worth every difficult step. She'd been the girl no one chose, but she'd chosen herself, and in doing so, she had found everything she never knew she needed. The music swelled, Luca held her close, and for the first time in her life, Evelyn Carter Moretti was exactly where she belonged, home.